All right, Emre Gonen joins me now in the studio. He's a faculty member of the Department of International Relations in Istanbul's Bilgi University. Emre, we just played a packet talking about the events of that night, but Turkey has been through a number of coups, 1960, two failed coups after that, 1970s, and then the big one in 1980. How does this one sort of differ from the ones in the past?
That's the question. It's quite unusual to have the kind of military takeover that has been prepared and almost implemented by civilians. All the time, all the coups that you are talking about have been fomented within the armed forces. There has been definitely some inspiration from some civilian politicians now and then, but it was not really determining the kind of preparation, the kind of how would I say, conspiration that made the coup. This time it was different. This time it was different. There was a civilian or underground, but definitely a civilian organization that has prepared this coup. And at the head, at the, how would I say, commanding post of the coup, there was a civilian. He escaped in a very obscure conditions. You know, Adil Öksüz, who was seen as the right arm of Fethullah Gülen and the organizer of the whole coup. That's the first point. The second point is that all the military takeovers have been prepared within the land forces in Turkey. Land forces are very prominent, and the other two forces and the gendarmerie to some degree followed, but never ever has a coup been prepared by within the Air Force. And this time it was the a pronunciamento of the Air Force officers, some of them, but the whole coup has been guided through an Air Force base next to Ankara. This is, I believe, really the second very important
Which is
difference.
ironic because that's the base that's been renamed. Now the S-400 missile defense system is actually landing there.
Yes, indeed, sir.
You talked about sort of the Air Force. Now, I'm just looking at some of the numbers as you were mentioning. I just pulled it up. 8,651 military personnel took part. That's roughly about 1.5% of the total Turkish armed forces. But when you look into the numbers more deeply, more than half of the generals, more than half of the admirals actually either had knowledge or partook in this failed coup attempt. 35 planes, 37 helicopters. We see the influence of the Air Force there.
Yes,
this was quite an elaborate plan.
It was an elaborate plan, definitely, but it was ill prepared. You know, you don't foment a coup with only 30 planes and the same number of helicopters in a country as wide as Turkey with 600,000 people under the arms today. Only less than 80 tanks and armored vehicles were on the roads, you know, to participate in that coup attempt, and you should need at least 10 times more than that. So a major part of the armed forces did not follow this first attempt of coup. Whereas when they made their declaration on the television, you know, a trembling and totally panicked young speaker read about it. It was in pure rhetoric of former so-called Kemalist coup d'etats, you know. So the idea was to titillate the fiber of Kemalism within the armed forces and make the armed forces continue this first attempt, this first step. It did not work.
But one of the similarities for the last sort of big coup in 1980 was that they took over the state public broadcaster, TRT. That night, too, they actually stormed our buildings here, our studios.
Yeah,
More than 60 officers or soldiers came in. Actually, we had to shut down operations.
So. But it was done in the direct functioning of the hierarchy of the armed forces. When everybody woke up the 12th of September in 1980, it was all over. It was all over. There was no resistance, no nothing. No.
Well, there was only one television station back then.
There was only, only one channel.
Then.
It was much easier. But even with a number of channels, they have stormed some of them. during that night of the coup attempt. And perhaps I should add also one of the most visible difference of this coup attempt with all the others. This was the reaction of the population. This is the first time that in Turkey people, unarmed civilian en masse, went to the streets to say the soldiers, go back to your barracks.
I don't
That's
have a
the
lot of
first.
time left, but I have to ask you this. Having seeing what we saw that night 3 years ago, do you think Turkey could ever go through something like this ever again?
Already, I never thought that such a coup would take ever place in Turkey. They have tried, it failed badly. It failed miserably for the perpetrators of this coup. I do not think that there will be any other opportunity, neither occasion to foment such a coup d'etat in Turkey.
All right, one final question. I have
Yeah.
about 15 seconds left. What does Turkey learn from all this?
The value of the democratic functioning and the deep-rooted sentiment of democracy within the Turkish population.
Wise words. All right, Emre Gonen, thank you for coming on.